For 2 decades, the X Factor dominated Saturday nights. Don't forget, it gave us both One Direction and Little Mix. It turned ordinary people into superstars. Harry Styles. I mean, I know I've already mentioned One Direction, and I know there was a bunch of other people that became famous from X Factor, but Harry Styles. We wouldn't have Harry Styles if it wasn't for X Factor. But behind the confetti and the standing ovations, there is a darker story. Contestants chewed up, spat out, and often left struggling with the fame that they never asked for. This is the untold story of X Factor, the show that made stars and broke them. When the X Factor launched in 2004, Simon Cowell wasn't just a judge, he was the architect of modern pop fame. The show promised a fairy tale. Anyone from anywhere could become a superstar. Auditions became must-watch TV. Tears, triumphs, sob stories. It wasn't just a talent competition, it was reality drama at its absolute best. And it worked. Millions tuned in every weekend. The winners went on to have number ones. It was the British version of the American dream, delivered by ITV. The mid-2000s to the early 2010s were the golden age of the X Factor. This is the time when we had people like Alexander Burke, JLS, Little Mix, chart toppers who came straight from the show. And then came One Direction. 5 teenagers has happily thrown together that changed pop forever. Suddenly, the X Factor wasn't just a show, it was a global factory of superstars. But for every Harry Styles, there were dozens of contestants who were never heard from again. Many of them, the story didn't end with fame, the story ended with struggle. That is the main part of the X Factor. The people who succeeded were only a small percentage compared to everyone who failed. As the years went on, cracks began to show. Former contestants started speaking out about exploitive contracts, lack of aftercare, and being thrown into the spotlight with no real support. Stories of manipulation behind the scenes, editing that made contestants seem like villains or heroes overnight, pressure to perform at the expense of their own mental health. In 2019, multiple ex-contestants even sought legal action against Simon Cowell and his entertainment label. A lot of people don't know about this, but it is a thing that actually happened. They were claiming that they was mistreated and that once the cameras were turned off, they were left out to dry. They were just abandoned. By the mid-2010s, the formula was already cracking. Ratings had dropped, audiences grew tired of the same old sob stories, the overproduced drama, the endless attempts to recreate One Direction's magic. It's much like Britain's Got Talent, and a lot of the other kind of similar shows where the format works so well, they just decided, let's not do anything new, let's just rinse and repeat the same old formula. And you can only do that so many times before people just get a little bit bored of it. It was the mid-2010s when people were really getting bored of X Factor. In fact, when was the last time you tuned into it? We also must remember that in the mid-2010s is when social media started taking off. YouTube and Instagram started hitting big, and this is when stars started becoming found by the audience as opposed to being found by production teams. Next to social media, the X Factor just seemed a little bit dated. I mean, why wait for Saturday night TV when you could just go viral on YouTube? By 2018, the show was on life support, and by 2021, ITV had axed the show completely. So what's the legacy of the X Factor? Because on one hand, it gave us some of the most popular artists of the 21st century. But on the other, it left a trail of disillusioned contestants, people who felt used and discarded like trash. It showed us the power of TV and the power that it has to make stars, but it also showed us the dangers of chasing fame without a safety net. The X Factor, it promised dreams. It delivered some, but for many, the dreams came with a cost. Maybe that's why its story feels so complicated. Because for every standing ovation, there was someone backstage, alone, overwhelmed, and forgotten about. The whole thing started becoming a bit more scripted as time went on. When it first came out, it wasn't just about the stars that it made. When the X Factor first came out, we all collectively laughed at all the contestants, right? Everyone who thought they had talent, everyone who thought they dared to dream how funny it was for us. It was the singers, it was the people that couldn't sing that made the best entertainment. As the series went on, they started realising that all of that global bullying with no aftercare didn't make for longevity on television. So they really should start putting some of the pressure on finding stars, which they did. But even by doing that, it just meant that they disregarded so many other people. They just kind of fell apart. I think behind the scenes, the X Factor was just a horrible place for the majority of people. And because of that, coupled with social media, it was never bound to make it. Bring back the X Factor now. Let's do another series. Will it last? I highly doubt it. I honestly highly doubt it. It just wouldn't stand today. People just wouldn't do it anymore. They wouldn't go on themselves. They wouldn't entertain the notion, and people wouldn't care to watch it. Not if you ask me. Now, if you like these kind of deep dives into pop culture and commentary on all the nostalgic things that you may have forgotten, don't forget to give this channel a subscribe. I really do appreciate it. I was going to say give it a follow, but I realised that's a whole different platform altogether. So do subscribe and comment below if you watched the whole video. Let me know what you think. I really do appreciate it.